Hi, I'm John Sobe, and this is Art and Design. Today, my guest is Jeff Newsom, who is, what are you, Jeff?
I would say a creative. That's currently my title. I've acted as an art director, a creative director, a product designer, stylist, a philanthropist, a collector, all kinds of things. But I work in the field of design.
How did you get started?
Many years ago, I was mentored by a group of people that worked within the fashion and design areas back here in Metro Detroit. I'm going to say 1986. And I was introduced to design through fashion mostly. And that kind of transpired to a career in fashion in New York City, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, and here in Detroit as well as a professor at CCS. And I just got enthralled with cool things and beautiful art and all things design. My philosophy is everything is design, from the flowers in your garden to the art that hangs on your wall, to the car that you drive, to the clothing that you wear. It all revolves around design. And I got lucky enough to work in all of those mediums: product design, fashion, automotive, advertising, and within all of that, there was some art thrown in, a few mentors here and there, and that's it.
That's not it. That's just starting. Talk about some of the mentors, Jeff, because you've had a lot of really interesting experiences.
Yeah, Peter Arnell, Holly Solomon, Tim Hill, who is now currently a mentor of mine. I was lucky enough to kind of fall into the world of fashion in New York City for many of years. And along that way, I met Holly Solomon, and she introduced me to the art world on the scale of New York City. And that then led me to all kinds of different experiences, working on fashion shows, working with photographers such as Peter Lindbergh and Arthur Elgort, David LaChapelle, Mary Ellen Mark, and that kind of world teetered on art. Now it's really more prevalent than ever that these fashion photographers kind of flew into the art world. And I was just lucky enough to be in New York City in the 90s, and I lived on the Lower East Side, and I was introduced to that world, which I was always interested in anyways. I really think my introduction to design started with the launch of MTV and being a kid here in Detroit and being enthralled by it and wanted to know who all these obscure English bands were. And you buy their album and you're introduced to the album covers and the album art and that kind of music scene. And a lot of that revolved around fashion and Vivienne Westwood and art and Peter Saville and all of this other mesh, that 80s mesh of art, design, music. And MTV for me was the catalyst. It was right in front of me. We were the few families in our neighborhood that had cable television here in Metro Detroit, and it kind of opened up a whole new world. I think for me specifically, it was Brit, that kind of mesh of Japan and Culture Club and Bow Wow Wow and punk and Duran Duran and Tony Vermontes and music, art, and Vivienne Westwood, who was clothing all these people, and that kind of mash of design and excitement. And MTV brought that to me. I think that specifically as a 11-year-old kid, seeing that, for that weird 20 minutes between those long commercials, really changed the way I saw things and how I could interact with them. God knows I didn't even know I'd end up here. But yeah, MTV. I'm going to give it to you, TV. I mean, really, it opened up so much. It opened up this world of Interview Magazine, Andy Warhol, and Joan Didion, and literature, and it exploded in my head, thinking, wow, there's so much more out there than cars and Detroit.
Although you've had a lot of experience with cars and Detroit.
I have, after moving back from New York City, I worked with Audi for a year, and I got to explore a lot of things with them on an automotive advertising basis, working with Guy Levert and Robert Johnson and the Audi 8. We launched a luxury car with them. I partnered with Barney's New York and Simon Doonan, who I've known for years, with Jonathan Adler. And I'm not really a car guy. I like car automotive. I find it fascinating. There's few cars that I really find spectacular, but I never really did auto. I did a Mercedes-Benz commercial here and there and some other things, but Audi kind of, for a year and a half, working with them, launching a car around the United States with this global campaign in Condé Nast. It was a fun gig. I'm very grateful that opened up another world of interesting characters and great advertising. And we took the car around to newest Barney's locations, Beverly Hills. I think we did one in Florida. We did them all over. Boston. Yet another great multi-tiered experience. A lot of ride and drives and site location art installation. And Audi was a great client. I think the Europeans are a little bit more open to experiences. And this was a long time ago. So it was really quite rare that this mashup of everything that we did came to par in many different cities: Dallas, New York, LA, Boston, Chicago. That was a great program we did with Audi. I think the European auto industry at the time was a little bit more open to experiential, aspirational, not necessarily about a stupid car. It was about experiencing all these different areas wrapped into the car. And I don't mean stupid. I just mean, it's fun. So,
Hey, for the Audi project, I wanted to highlight one thing, just to kind of give an idea of what types of things you were doing with it. You put Daniel Lieberskin in a box.
In a box, that was all handled with the agency that we worked with on the project. There was 8 innovators for the Audi 8L. Very collaborative. Narciso Rodriguez, Guy Levert, Katie Lang, Robert Johnson, Bill Joy, Daniel Liebskin. We had these images that we created, and then those images then traveled around the United States with us on this program of ride and drive. Lucette Duget was the installation visual artist on a lot of these. We did the Biltmore down in Florida. She lit up that building. Katie Lang performed in New York. We did something with the I.M. Pei Opera Museum down in Dallas. Each image was then was on the installation that was inspired by Dan Graham and the Dia on 22nd Street. I had been there just previous and saw he had done a mirrored installation on the roof. I was enthralled by it and thought, how can I transfer this idea to automotive? And we built this kind of strange shaped wall that traveled with us around the country. We put the car in front of it, and on the wall, I wanted people to interact with the car as well as the program and the advertising that was running in Condé Nast magazines at the time. If you've ever been to a ride and drive, you see a car, it's kind of boring. Features, the door goes open, the window goes open, the color's pretty. But I wanted there to be information, and information that connected to the car, but also connected to these other innovators in their fields other than automotive. Became inspirational, aspirational, and informational. that to me is really strong for an advertising campaign. Um, it's not just always about a car, you know. Everybody in the automotive field is going to hate me for this, but it's like there's got to be some kind of interest or story behind a car launch. That's really important. We could talk about the fancy burrs and that it's electric and the tires and wah wah wah. But with the campaign, it was really about these 8 innovators and where they were innovative in their fields. Narciso Rodriguez, we worked with him with a lunch in Los Angeles at the Barney's, at the Fred's and Barney's, and we invited a bunch of people, and J.C. Ross and other numerous stars that were fantastic, that were innovative in their fields. She had just had a show with Kelsey Grammer, I think it was called Girlfriends, and she was working on that. And that was really innovative in television at the time because it was an all-female, all-African cast. So inviting people that were innovative to lunch and just to sit with them and be who they were and be trailblazers in that, alongside a car that was innovative trailblazing, was kind of fun. I had a great time. You know, I tend to make projects I work on important to myself, which gets me excited. And then if I'm excited, I get everybody around me excited. And it becomes something more than just another product. You know, there's so many things launched out there, cars and ice creams and skateboards and books. But I think if you have a staff and or leader that becomes excited about projects and excited about logos and excited about color, that makes it open up to other people, open up people's minds. And I was lucky enough to have kind of mentors, strange people around me that did different things. We talked about Maya Lin the other day, me and you, John, about how she was first portrait for working on with a photographer for a Condé Nast magazine, and that she was working on the African American Museum on Lower Broadway at the time, and we shot her in that. Just, you think you're in fashion, but then you now are working in architecture, or you're now working in fine arts, shooting a book on whirligigs, or you remain. Life is strange. I think alongside MTV, my best trait is keeping my eyes and ears open. You know, on shoots. You know, I started as a fashion stylist many years ago, and then a photographer said, "Oh, can you get us some props?" Then I was a set designer, and then I was a prop stylist, and then they were like, "Why don't you do the sets as well?" So then I started doing sets, and then a group of people said, or another photographer, "You should be my art director," and then maybe you should be a creative director, and then that's how I ended up at Levi's, working on the Dockers program in Levi's International, and then I had worked prior at the Gap in New York City, helping them do their presentations, and then all of a sudden I'm designing their fixtures for the new store launch, and then they asked me to do a series of holiday gifts for the stores. And at that time I had a furniture line and was doing these kind of weird little furniture things, and I was about to open a store in New York City in the meatpacking district with a partner of mine, and so it's kind of like I just kept my eyes and ears open. Things kind of flew in. I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky that my career has been varied and I'd say kind of interesting.
So basically, we can't give you a title because there's too many things to mention here, Jeff. So
creative. I mean, I think of myself as being a creative. A lot of people peg themselves as they were a graphic designer for 30 years or a furniture designer. I think if you work in design, you have the skill to. I did color for a while. I think you have the skill to do all kinds of things. I wasn't necessarily prone to working for a company for 10 years and, developing their program. I'm interested in working on projects that further their program. Alongside CCS, I taught the first fashion class at CCS, and then I recently, a few years ago, prior to my return to Michigan, taught global branding. So I look at myself as a leader that goes in and works on special projects and opens teams' eyes to different ways of looking. Like this last weekend, I was at a barn sale and found all these amazing books and textiles and beads from the former fashion editor of the Detroit Free Press. I called all my friends. I'm like, you've got to meet me down here. I'm in a dirty barn. It was actually in Birmingham. If you live in Birmingham, you know about this barn over off of Brown Street. And it was just interesting to go through 70 years of her things and what was important to her and how textiles, color, and glass and beads and books and literature shaped her life and the way she lived. And her husband's archive was even more fantastic. Vintage denim, and he worked for the Mackinac Department of Roads and Services. So the logos from them from the 1970s I'm getting chills. So
well, I got to put in a commercial break because I know you have an upcoming project for the 25th anniversary of the Ruth Ellis Center. And yes, I wanted you to put a plug in for that before I lose you at the end of this interview.
Yes. Let's put a plug in it. Do you want to do this now?
Yeah.
So the Ruth Ellis Center, I was an avid collector of all things: clothing, art objects, package design. So when I moved to Denver, I kind of slimmed all that down, and I kept a small archive of clothing. Specifically, I slimmed it down to women's dresses. So over the years, as a stylist or a director, I'm constantly in a barn or lost and found in New York or decades in Los Angeles, looking at things, looking at dresses, looking. And I would pick up things that were important in fashion, such as the Adina leopard dress from 1991, or a Pierre Cardin dress from the 60s, or a Terry Mugler dress from the 80s, or odd Comme des Garçons dress from Japan. And they built up, and a lot more came, and got this collection. And I decided that this collection needed to be seen instead of just donated. The original idea of all these objects were to be donated to museums around the world. The Metropolitan Museum, the V&A, FIT, SCAD, et cetera. But when I moved back to Detroit from Denver, I decided, well, why don't we put this show together? I would like to show my former students these dresses because these are things that you will rarely see in life. Most of these dresses you will never see actually in person in life. And I say museum show, but show will be really up close and personal. Nothing will be on a stage. You'll be able to walk around them. I know it's dangerous, and a lot of museum people are going to be like, no. But for me, I want people to actually look at it, to see it up close. I don't want it to be like on a stage and not accessible. So we've got 25 dresses from the collection. I've got numerous others. 25 years of the Ruth Ellis Center anniversary. We will be doing it in May here in Detroit. And these dresses are really important, and they're important globally as well as educationally. A lot of the dresses are famous or rare, but a lot of the dresses were also collected for educational purposes. The haute couture dress from Christian Dior and Ralph Simmons, there's a very specific embroidery. The Mary McFadden dress has 5 layers on the sleeve of Lessange. The Comme des Garçons dress is extremely rare. I have a navy version. Metropolitan Museum of Art has the gray version. FIT has a peach-colored Halston dress I have the burgundy version. So there's a lot of education there along with those items. And I just wanted to share before the items went to a museum and were either locked away for 100 years or not shown to the public.
So what is the opportunity for people to get involved and help support the Ruth Ellis Center and also the legacy of these dresses?
Well, I think with this, we're all working on that right now. You can come to the show. Please donate money to the Ruth Ellis Center and be a part of what's going on in their community and my community. There'll probably be a interesting way to raise funds and concerns to the dress. So instead of all these dresses being donated in my name, we would like for people to donate money to the center and then hold the dress, and then that dress will be then donated to those museums in their name. And their legacy will last thousands of years. A great way to raise money. So if somebody would like to donate $10,000 to the Ruth Ellis Center, they can then, I will give them the Comme des Garçons dress that has been promised to the V&A in London. So if in 20 years they do a retrospective Ray Kawakubo, who is the designer for Comme des Garçons, that dress will then be in the show, donated by them, basically. So it's a great way to show people what Ruth Ellis does and how important that organization is, and then to have his personal legacy live on forever in the Metropolitan Museum of Art or FIT's museum or the V&A.
It's a great opportunity.
It's going to be a really great, fun show. My main objective is for students and people who not necessarily work in fashion and or design to see these garments up front. Like, we have a spectacular collection of American fashion: Halston, Jeffrey Bean, Isabel Toledo, Diane von Furstenberg, who isn't American but who lives, one of her companies based here. We have an original wrap dress, and just to see these things, you hear about them, and I don't think many of my students had seen an actual haute couture dress, and this one is spectacular, from Christian Dior, designed by Ralph Simmons. So I have one, and I've got a lot of dresses. But like with the Pierre Cardin dress, 1967, they're rare, and I think it's important for people to actually see them in person, because once they're in a book or placed on a museum website, you don't really get the feeling for them. You don't understand the cut and the fabric. So I think with the show, it's really important to focus on the educational piece first, and then we can talk about the celebrities that have worn the dress, or however, like we have a Donna Karan dress that was worn by Liza Minnelli and Hillary Rodham Clinton at the first date dinner. And there's a huge article in Vogue about it, and there's a lot of history there too. So I think that's super important. It's not just about it is about a bunch of pretty dresses, but there's a lot of history behind all this, and there's a lot of story behind these, and importance about women's liberation, and Diane's wrap dress, and how ultra suede was developed for Issey Miyake, and Halston kind of latched onto that and used it in his collections. You think Halston, you think ultra suede, but there's a lot more behind what ultra suede was and where it was discovered, and telling those stories, I think, is really important. Hopefully there'll be a book about all these items as well. We're in negotiations on working on shooting a book and telling that story with another story, and then you will be able to purchase the book, and then all the proceeds from the book go to the Ruth Ellis Center.
So Jeff, last question: how can people find out more about this project and the Ruth Ellis Center?
Obviously, you can go to my Instagram page, Jeff Newsom _ I think it is. Frock Show. There's also an Instagram page. There's obviously my website. I have a team of experienced PR people globally and locally that are working with me on that project. We'll probably be doing a lot of international, national, and local press. It concerns to Frock Show and Ruth Ellis Center. Once again, Ruth Ellis Center, Ruth Ellis Center. Yeah, it's going to be a great thing. I'm really excited. May, we haven't quite announced the location yet and or our sponsors, but that's all in the works. And there's some really great people and really great museums that these items are going to go to. Henry Ford, FIT, the Met, V&A, lots of great ones. So I'm really excited about that. And that's all I got. Anything else?
Well, the last thing is Ruth Ellis Center is going to be celebrating 25 years next year with this dress show. And I think it's a noble effort that you're putting together for this. And Jeff, thanks for coming on the Art and Design Show to tell us about it.
Thanks, Kitten. We're going to see you soon, I hope, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
like
hoping
there's
to see you.
there's no
3
escape.
weeks in a row.
So, yeah.